Life keeps selling you this idea of balance like it's the secret to everything. People will tell you that balance is the key to success, balance is the way to happiness, balance is how you handle pressure. But let me tell you something real. You don't need balance, you need focus. Balance sounds pretty on paper, but in the real world, in the grind, in the hustle, balance is just another word for distraction. It's a softer way of saying split yourself in 1,000 directions and then wonder why you're not great at any of them. The truth is no empire was built on balance. No dream was achieved by trying to keep everything perfectly even. The ones who make it, the ones who stand out, the ones who turn nothing into something, they're the ones who lock in, the ones who go all in on one thing until it moves. Focus beats balance every single time. Think about it. Balance tells you to give a little here, a little there. Focus tells you to bet on yourself and put everything into that vision you can't stop thinking about. Balance will keep you comfortable, but focus will push you past comfort into greatness. When you're balanced, you're safe. When you're focused, you're dangerous. And if you're trying to build something worth remembering, safe will never get you there. You've got to get obsessed. You've got to get tunnel vision. You've got to be willing to sacrifice things that look good right now for the thing that's going to change your life forever. People won't understand you when you're focused. They'll call you selfish. They'll say you're out of balance. They'll say you should slow down. But they'll also be the same people clapping when your focus turns into success they never thought you'd reach. See, when I talk about focus, I'm not just talking about working hard. Anybody can work hard. I'm talking about locking in so deep that nothing can shake you off your path. I'm talking about waking up with the vision in your mind and going to sleep with it still there. I'm talking about turning down parties, skipping distractions, cutting off people who waste your time, all because you've got something bigger calling you. Focus is when you take your dream so seriously that you stop negotiating with your excuses. Balance will let you make excuses. Balance says, it's okay. You'll try again tomorrow. Focus says, do it now or lose the chance forever. Look around at anyone you admire. They didn't get there by chasing balance. They got there by chasing focus. You think the greats were trying to divide their attention evenly between 100 different things. No, they were locked in. They missed birthdays. They missed nights out. They missed comfort. But what they gained was everything they were chasing. And the funny thing is, once you reach that place, once your focus pays off, you can buy balance later, you can buy comfort later, you can buy freedom later. But if you try to balance too early, you'll never even make it to the point where balance is an option. Balance is for now. The world is noisy. Everybody's trying to get your attention, every notification, every post, every drama, every opinion. If you don't learn to focus, you'll waste your whole life giving your energy to things that don't matter. That's why so many people feel tired but never fulfilled. They're busy, but they're not focused. They're doing a million things. But none of it is adding up. It's not about doing more. It's about locking in on the thing that's going to change your situation. You can't build a skyscraper if you're digging 10 shallow holes. You've got to dig one deep foundation and build up from there. That's focus. And let me be clear, focus is not easy. Focus is lonely. Focus will test you. Focus will break you down before it builds you up. People will doubt you. They'll laugh at you. They'll walk away from you because they don't see what you see. But if you stay focused, if you keep pushing, if you refuse to break, one day those same people will look at you and say, I always knew you had it in you. That's the funny part about focus. It makes you a target at first, but it makes you a legend in the end. Stop trying to balance everything. Stop trying to please everybody. Stop trying to live like you've got unlimited time. You don't. Every second you spend split between distractions is a second you could have spent locked in on your dream. Balance won't build you. Focus will. When you focus, your vision sharpens. When you focus, your energy multiplies. When you focus, opportunities show up that balance could never create. And when you finally get where you're supposed to be, you'll realize that balance was never the goal. The goal was to focus so hard that balance became possible later. Focus also means discipline. It means you don't let emotions decide for you. It means you don't chase every shiny thing that looks good for a moment. It means you say no to things that don't line up with your vision, even when they're tempting. Discipline is just another word for respect for yourself, for your dream, for your future. If you don't have the discipline to stay focused, you'll spend your life building someone else's dream while yours collects dust. That's the reality nobody likes to hear. And don't think focus means perfection. You're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall short sometimes. But focus doesn't let failure stop you. Focus says, get up, learn, adjust, and keep moving. Balance will tell you, maybe this isn't for you. Focus will tell you, you're not done until you win. The difference is mindset. Balance is fragile. Focus is unbreakable. So if you're sitting here waiting for balance, stop. Balance is overrated. Focus is what's going to save you. Focus is what's going to elevate you. Focus is what's going to turn your story from ordinary to extraordinary. Don't chase balance. Lock in. Stay hungry. Stay consistent. Stay obsessed. Your life is the canvas and focus is the brush. Paint something worth remembering. Focus today creates freedom tomorrow. Balance too early steals that future. And this principle doesn't just apply to personal lives or success stories. It stretches into the way nations rise, how they define themselves, and how they secure their place in the world. When you look at history, the great powers weren't built by trying to balance too many things at once. They were built by relentless focus. And when you bring that lens to India, You see a story that proves how choosing focus over balance marked the birth of a doctrine that didn't just defend borders, it redefined them. A doctrine born not from imitation, but from innovation. One that told the world India was no longer waiting for permission, it was building its own rules. For decades, India was caught in the language of balance. Balancing between alliances, balancing between old Soviet days and Western outreach, balancing between defensive postures and the need for modernization, balancing between economic development and military spending. But balance had its limits. Balance kept India cautious. Balance kept India reactive. Balance meant India was always trying to walk a tightrope instead of setting the stage, and something shifted. The realization came that balance wasn't building strength, it was diluting it. Focus was the answer. Focus on technological innovation, focus on indigenization, focus on crafting a doctrine that wasn't borrowed but born from India's own realities, geography, and ambitions. That focus is what gave birth to the assertive military doctrine we now see. A doctrine built not just on numbers, but on innovation. This wasn't just about acquiring weapons, it was about building. India's decision to push for indigenous systems like the BrahMos missile, the Tejas fighter jet, the Arihant nuclear submarine, and the Agni series of ballistic missiles showed a clear shift. It wasn't about balance between imports and domestic production anymore. It was about focusing resources on innovation that created independence. When a nation controls its own defense technology, it controls its future, and India understood that. Balance would have meant being forever dependent on global suppliers, forever vulnerable to sanctions or shifting alliances. Focus meant sovereignty. Focus meant resilience. Focus meant freedom tomorrow because of the sacrifices and discipline of today. Focus also showed up in doctrine, not just technology. India began to move from a defensive posture, where the emphasis was on reacting to aggression, to a doctrine of deterrence and assertiveness. The development of a nuclear triad, the refinement of precision strike capabilities, the strengthening of air defense systems like S-400 and the indigenous Akash series, all of this marked a shift. It wasn't about keeping balance with adversaries anymore. It was about ensuring India could dictate the tempo of conflict. Focus today was about ensuring no one could box India into a corner tomorrow. The freedom of choice in the future was being purchased by the discipline to stay locked in today. When you look at India's neighborhood, you see why focus mattered. Two nuclear-armed adversaries on its borders, both historically hostile, both watching for any sign of weakness. Balance in such an environment would have been dangerous. Balance would have meant hesitation, waiting, reacting. Focus meant clarity, clarity that survival and growth depended on building a doctrine that could handle simultaneous threats, clarity that the armed forces needed modernization not someday, but now, clarity that partnerships could be cultivated. But sovereignty could never be compromised. India didn't spread itself thin. It locked in on what mattered most: survivability, credibility, deterrence. And out of that focus came freedom, not just military freedom, but diplomatic freedom too. Innovation became the backbone of this transformation. India realized that the wars of tomorrow wouldn't be fought the way wars were fought in the past. Cybersecurity, space warfare, unmanned systems, hypersonic technology, this is where the battles of the future would unfold. So India began to focus on building capabilities in these domains, refusing to wait until it was too late. Agencies like DRDO-ISR and a growing private sector ecosystem became instruments of this vision. Instead of chasing balance by trying to do everything at once, India doubled down on specific areas where it could leapfrog: space-based surveillance, indigenous satellites, anti-satellite weapons. All are born of focus. Might have said wait, but focus said act. This wasn't just about weapons and technology. Focus also meant rethinking strategy, rethinking training, rethinking readiness. Joint operations between the Army, Navy, and Air Force became a bigger priority. Exercises with global powers became more frequent, not as a balancing act, but as a focused strategy to sharpen capabilities and learn from others while still building uniquely Indian solutions. Military reforms, restructuring commands, building integrated battle groups, these were not balance-driven decisions. They were focus-driven, built on the understanding that freedom in the future would come only if India sharpened its edge today. And the results are clear. India today speaks a different language on the global stage. It doesn't plead, it positions. It doesn't balance timidly between powers, it partners from a position of strength. When India engages with the US, with Russia, with France, with Israel, with Japan, it does so not from dependency, but from confidence. Because focus has created leverage, and leverage creates freedom. India doesn't need to align completely with anyone, because focus on self-reliance and innovation means it has room to maneuver. Freedom in diplomacy, freedom in strategy, freedom in economics. This was purchased by focus in military innovation and doctrine. The journey hasn't been easy. Focus is never easy. It required sacrifice. Projects took decades. Money had to be invested. Shortcuts had to be rejected. Criticism had to be endured. People called indigenous projects failures. People mocked the delays. People said India should just stick to buying. But that's the price of focus. It demands patience. It demands belief. It demands resilience. Balance would have been easier in the short term. Balance would have meant outsourcing the hard work. But balance would have also meant change in the future. Focus today created the possibility of freedom tomorrow, and India chose the harder path. This focus-based doctrine doesn't just prepare India for war. It prepares India for peace. Because true peace comes only when you have the strength to defend it. Balance leaves cracks in your armor. Focus makes it solid. And when adversaries know you're solid, they think twice before testing you. That's the hidden power of an assertive doctrine backed by innovation. It creates space for peace by making war a costly choice for anyone daring to start it. This is the paradox of strength, that the more focused you are on building it, the less you actually have to use it. India's rise in the defense sector has also inspired others. Nations across Asia, Africa, and beyond are watching how a country once dependent on imports is now exporting weapons, satellites, and technologies. That's the ripple effect of focus. It doesn't just change you, it changes the ecosystem around you. Focus is contagious. It sets a standard. It makes makes others rethink their own balance-driven strategies. India's assertive doctrine has redefined what it means for a developing country to claim its own destiny, to refuse to play second fiddle, to innovate and create instead of imitate and follow. Focus today creates freedom tomorrow. Balance too early steals that future, and India's story is living proof of it. The doctrine of assertiveness, the emphasis on innovation, the refusal to stay locked in old patterns, all of it shows what happens when a nation decides it won't split its energy anymore. It will lock in, it will focus, and because of that focus, it will be free to decide its own tomorrow.